Welcome to One Planet Conservation Awareness. Today, we're going to be exploring the world of the humble yet miraculous bumblebee. We will be learning all about the UK's bumblebee populations and discussing their vital role in our ecosystems. We're lucky enough to be joined by Nikki and Jack from the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, who are working to protect our country's bees and spread awareness of their importance. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. Perhaps, Nikki, you can start us off by giving us a whistle-stop tour of bumblebees in the UK, what kind of species we have, and maybe a few of your favourite facts about bee ecology and society.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting us on to chat with you. So in the UK, we currently have 24 different species of bumblebee, but we did actually have 27 that were recorded at one stage. So we have actually had 2 extinctions over the last 100 or so years. And we have a further one that is no longer recorded. It was only temporarily recorded for 1 year. So it's not strictly classed as an extinction, but it was an establishment and didn't manage to do it. So we currently have 24, but 7 of these are actually of high conservation concern, which means that their populations have actually declined by a minimum of 60 to 70% of the areas that we used to find them in. So, of course, that's very important to us to try and help them and conserve them. Out of those other 24, we have 7 that are quite common. So these are the ones that you'll find in urban areas and in garden areas. So those are the ones that if you garden for bees, these are the 7 that you will find and come in. So the UK, we have extensive coverage of bees, really from the south right the way through to the very northern areas, uplands of Scotland. And all of our bumblebee species are, if you like, adapted to slightly different habitats. Most of them quite like open, flower-rich habitat, particularly our rare species. But we also do have ones that are specialised in more upland, higher altitude areas as well. So where we have our rare bumblebee species, Jack will be talking about the projects that we do to help them all later.
Perfect. And can you give us a few of your sort of favourite facts of bees? Why are you so interested in bees and how did you end up working with bumblebees?
Well, some really interesting facts I think that people don't know about our bees is it's actually quite a female-led society. So you have the queen bees that are the biggest, they're about an inch or so big. And over the next few weeks, as it starts to warm up, you'll be seeing these queen bees emerging. And all of the workers that bees have are actually females as well. So it's quite a sort of female-dominated society. Males are produced right at the end of the colony cycle, and their role is to mate, but then they actually die quite quickly. So it is the females that establish the colony, build it, look after it, and the males just appear at the end. And I think that's probably quite intriguing for quite a few different women as well. But I got into them because I've always been interested in special sex, so the ants, bees and wasps, and it's fascinating how they all live together as a society, and some of them forfeit their right to actually reproduce. So you mainly have just one reproductive queen within the bee society. So it's very complex then to explore that a little bit more.
I think that especially bees and other eusocial animals like this have some of the most interesting societies in the animal kingdom. I would say very, very interesting. And of course, this society works really hard to provide an amazing service to our ecosystems. So could you shed a little bit of light on the ecosystem services that the UK's bees provide to us?
Yes, of course. So bees are incredibly important for pollination, and we think 80% of pollination is done by our bees. So that's our bumblebees, solitary bees, and honeybees. So of course, the pollination services that they provide are pollinating the variety of some of our most important fruit and vegetable crops, about 80%, 84% of those as well. So this is a free service that the bees are providing, and this is estimated to be worth in the region of about £680 million per year that they do. So of course, to be able to sustain our high food production of fruit and vegetables, we need to conserve our bees, but also our other insect pollinators as well. So all of those top fruits, our favourite fruit and vegetables, from tomatoes through to our courgettes, our strawberries, all of those need bees for pollination.
So if we're so reliant on these bees, what has happened to make these bees so threatened, and that most of the species need the protection of you guys? What are some of the problems that these bee species are facing, especially in the UK?
So in the UK, really since the end of the Second World War and towards the end of the 1980s, we've actually lost 97% of our ancient wildflower meadows. And of course, that's had a massive impact on our bees for where they can forage, but also where they can live as well. So a large part now of what was countryside can be very heavily intensified farming, and it can be increased urbanization as well. So many of these bees are not able to adapt to these heavily urban areas, or the lack of forage that is now available on the landscape scale. So the projects that we work on is trying to restore a lot of that flower-rich habitat and link up rare populations of our bees.
So the major issue is habitat loss, like it is for many species around the world, but also happening in the UK as well.
Exactly, and of course that loss of habitat has had a dramatic effect on our bumblebees, our bees, our pollinators, but everything else that relies on this habitat as well. So of course our farmland birds, many of our mammals as well. So by using bumblebees as the flagship species, working with farmers to give advice on restoring this habitat, it's not only going to benefit our bumblebees, it's going to restore an ecosystem that's largely been lost as well.
So I think we normally think of flagship species of turtles and elephants, but I think the bumblebee definitely deserves its flag as well. So that's really fascinating. Perhaps, Jack, you can give us a bit of an insight to what the Bumblebee Conservation Trust are doing to deal with these issues and some of the major projects that you guys have put in place to try and protect the bee species that we have in the UK.
Yes, absolutely. I'd also like to thank you for having us on. The top level approach that the Bumblebee Conservation Trust takes is generally four things. We try to provide some of the lost ancestral habitat that bumblebees no longer have access to through establishing, or in some cases, re-establishing this lost habitat through volunteer work, partnership work with landowners. We provide policy support and advice, as well as providing information to other groups so that they best know how to support their local ecosystems and bumblebees. We've done some work with the Ministry of Justice, for example, so that they understand better how to support their local pollinators. We try to add to knowledge and understanding of bumblebees through our survey work and research. And we do plenty of public engagement to try to share with the public the sorts of things that they can do to help, and small actions that they can take to improve the lives of bumblebees in the UK. Now, as you've mentioned, we have a number of really brilliant projects all throughout the UK, from the northern tip of Scotland down to the southeast in Kent, so that we can cover all of these brilliant places that bumblebees are found in the UK. Our probably most flagship project is called Bee Walk, and it's a national citizen science survey scheme, which involves people once a month throughout the bumblebee active season, which is March through October. We'll go out for around a kilometer walk, record the bumblebees that they see while they're out there, and let us know how many they are and what species they've seen. And that helps us understand how populations are changing over months and over years, and where, which helps us and other organizations target conservation work and research to better understand what issues bumblebees are facing. So it's really, really important that people are so enthusiastic and involved in Bee Walk.
And how long has Bee Walk been going on for?
Oh, goodness. 12 years, I think. So it's been quite a long while. It's our longest running project. Our second longest is Nikki's project, and I'm sure she'll be talking about that in a moment or two. We have a few other projects as well, such as our Pollinating the Peak project, which is in the Peak District, and that focuses on education and really trying to help people understand the connection between nature, bumblebees, their food, all of the things that we rely on. They do a lot of public engagement and outreach work. They visit schools in better times so that they can help put bumblebees into the curriculum. And as one of my colleagues puts it, put a bumblebee in everyone's heart. So, yeah, wherever there are rare bumblebee species, like in the north of Scotland with the great yellow, we have a project there, Saving the Great Yellow Bumblebee, focused on trying to conserve that. And we have 2 projects down in Kent, because Kent is such a fabulously bumblebee important habitat.
Amazing. So the Bumblebee Conservation Trust are working all across the country, and also working really heavily with the communities, which we'll come back to you, Jack, in a moment to talk more about that outreach. But I think, Nikki, you're very eager to tell us about your focus project of the short-haired bumblebee.
Yeah, so as Jack said, this is our sort of second longest running project, and we formed this back in 2009 with the main aim of trying to attempt to reintroduce one of our extinct UK bumblebee species, but also as well to create landscape scale habitat improvements, so flora-rich diversity, the seasonal length of flowering, and just the number of wildflower species. So working with a variety of different farmers and landowners to give bespoke advice on how to increase this habitat. And then another part of that was also to do outreach as well, so engaging with people, getting community ownership as well of these areas that we were improving, and getting local investment into them by recruiting volunteers and asking them to do bee walks and habitat management as well. So what's been going on really is we did 5 years of reintroduction of the short-haired bumblebee, which we collected from Sweden. So Sweden and Estonia are the only countries left in Europe that actually have good populations of this species. In all other European countries, they're declining, they're rare, they're threatened, or they're either extinct. So what we agreed with Sweden is to try and attempt to reintroduce them. So we're still looking at the results of this, and we're still seeing if we've got evidence of establishment. So the main things though that we've actually worked on with the project and has been the main success is the amount of habitat that we've actually got, and we've improved the habitat on over 2,500 hectares. So think if 1 hectare is a football field, it's quite a significant amount. And actually that connectivity and that diversity and seasonal length has meant that our rare species have actually increased as a result of this. And we believe this is one of the first projects, long-term projects across Europe that's actually shown this. So working with farmers, landowners on that one-to-one bespoke management, so tailor-making a management plan for each of those individual farmsteads or individual landowners to create the best from their land. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. And I think that's probably been one of the most successful things of the project. And we're very excited. We're currently analysing this data, and we've got some really positive results. So it's really good to show back to those landowners that it really does work. It can help our rare bumblebees. And of course, everybody in their gardens can do something to help our bees as well.
Sounds like an amazing success. Can you tell us a little bit about how you go about sort of persuading landowners and farmers to turn some of their land, which is obviously quite a lot of value for farmers, how do you persuade them to turn that into bumblebee habitat?
That's a really good thing, and it depends on each different landowner you work with, because obviously it's a negotiation as well. So farmers, of course, they've got to feed our population, and they're a business as well, so they have to maintain that high amount of food that they have been producing. So the government do give grants to farmers which they can sign up to, which leaves land aside around arable fields. So if they've got any awkward corners, or if a field isn't very productive, they can get subsidised by recreating a flower-rich meadow, or by increasing the amount of flower diversity in these areas. But also any little pockets of the farm, we can always find something to do with. So no matter what farm environment that is, or for other landowners, whether it's a very wet area, whether it's a very dry area, no matter the soil type, the aspect, the drainage, the amount of sun it gets, there is always something we can do to put there. And it's sort of, we start and aim high, and then we negotiate and see what we can do from there on. But the majority of farmers that really do want to help conserve our bees, it's so now well known how important they are for pollination. And many of my farmers grow arable crops. So field beans, all-seed rape, all of these need bees for pollination. And there's so much evidence to show if you increase the amount of pollination, you're going to get a better yield. You're going to get a better quality. So it's really looking at long-term sustainability. And many of the farmers will pass the farms down to their children. So they want to have a productive farm that is going to be sustainable in the future.
And as this project has been running since 2009, I'm sure some of those early farms, are you starting to see results? Have you convinced those farmers to become bumblebee lovers?
We have, and one of the things that I was, if you like, so surprised about when I first started was I wasn't sure how the farmers were going to react. But out of all the different groups of different landowners I spoke to, it was the farmers that actually first came on board. And what we started to do is I work with the peer farmers, and we do Bumblebee Farm Day events. So we invite all the other farmers in the area, and we provide tea and cake, which always brings farmers out, and we show them around the farm, and we talk about all the things that you can do, some things that have worked, some things that haven't worked. So it's a great way to sort of all come together and share those ideas and ideas of best practice as well. And I think, again, that bespoke and showing them each other's farms. Okay, this has worked really well on this farm. Maybe this is something we can incorporate into yours. And farmers then also get quite competitive. And they're like, well, my field looks better than his this year. You should come and see mine. So it's been a great way to network with the farmers and work from that way. But what's been lucky is that we have been very successful with these farmers, and it's like a domino effect. So as soon as you get a few on board, the word spreads pretty quickly in the farming community, and they say, okay, she's all right, you can talk to her. So
I think it's a great example of a community-led and community-driven conservation program that we are seeing around the world, especially in Africa and Southeast Asia. So it's amazing to see it actually in the UK as well, working successfully. And engaging the community and getting people, out there into fields, protecting the species is what conservation is all about. And I know, Jack, that is something that you work heavily on. So could you tell us a little bit about what your focuses are on outreach and how our audience watching this at home, how they can also help with bumblebee conservation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am lucky enough to work with a brilliant team of around 1,100 volunteers all throughout the UK, all parts of the UK, who help us do this really necessary work for bumblebees. Volunteering and outreach are the bread and butter of what we do. We couldn't reach as many people, we couldn't plant as many flowers, we couldn't help as many bumblebees without all of these people coming and joining in the effort. In the last year where we were doing a lot of outreach, which was 2019, before everything grew a bit more complicated for public engagement, we met with 30,000 people through volunteer-led events, which is a huge number of people who are better prepared to take action for bumblebees, who can go into their garden and say, I know what that is, that's great for my flowers. And it's a lot more people who are prepared to make a difference, even if it's just something small. So a lot of what our volunteers do is further public engagement and really try to spread the word through going out to trade shows, gardening shows, delivering talks about the plight of the bumblebee, which have moved online now. We're getting lots and lots of requests from people who are interested in hearing from us, which is great. Our volunteers are big helps with that. Surveying how bumblebees are in areas, supporting with bio blitzes, going along so that there's someone who knows a little bit more about bumblebee ID and making sure that species are recorded in areas. So there is a whole lot that people can do, and it's a huge privilege for me to get to see all of this happening on the ground and support these fantastic people. As for what anyone can do, Nikki touched on it earlier with gardening for bumblebees specifically, even if it's not gardening, as the case may be, just leaving a little part of your garden to grow a little bit more wild, somewhere that's a bit more familiar to bumblebees, closer to the ancestral habitat, is really helpful. We've seen some fantastic bumblebee-friendly gardens where people have planted flowers that are in bloom all throughout the bumblebee active season from March through October, so that they always have something to eat while they are not in hibernation, which is super important. And even tiny little things. Tell your neighbors how important they are. Tell your kids, your family, or if you have an idea for how to help, just get in touch with us. Something that I've learned through working with our volunteer team is that everyone has a unique connection with nature. Everyone has gone out and seen something in the wild that they've kept with them throughout their life, whether it's something that they've seen with their family on their own, if they've been out on a walk, something they've seen on TV. So if you have a way that you love nature, then talk with us and we'll help you find a way to connect that with bumblebees and help you join the team.
Absolutely. And I'm sure many people are wondering what your background is, which I believe is another way people can also help the bees. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is and a little bit about the rise of the bee hotels that we see so much around these days?
Yeah, absolutely. They are absolutely brilliant for solitary bees who nest in these little holes that you see in them, generally made of bamboo. And solitary bees are some of our most important pollinators. And a great thing about solitary bees is that conservation work for them or for bumblebees tends to have a splash effect where it helps everyone who's on the team, who's on Team Pollinator. So having them in your garden, brilliant thing to do. If you're interested in also providing somewhere for bumblebees to live, like this lovely picture that's behind me, you can find instructions on providing a bumblebee nester on our website.
Amazing. And maybe Nikki, you could tell us a little bit more about what resources you have on your website and how people can get involved to support the trust and also learn more about bumblebees.
Yeah, we've got a huge wealth of resources that are on our website. So it's www.bumblebeeconservation.org. And one of the things, as leading on from our gardens, is we've actually got this wonderful app which is called Be Kind. And you can click on all the flowers that you have in your garden. It then gives you a rating, a score, and it gives you some ideas about what else you can plant as well. But you can also use it as a wildflower guide. So if you, or a flower guide, if you notice a neighbour that's got bees all over their flower and you're not sure what it is, you can click on the flower colour, how many petals it has once it flowers, and it will give you some ideas about what it is as well. So that's a really handy tool for anybody that's keen on gardening and getting started. We also do have resources on there for parents, particularly at the moment with homeschooling, or if it's a wet, windy weekend, we've got lots of kids' activities that you can go and have a look at. And we also have an ID book as well. If you are wanting to get into IDing, now is the perfect time to start learning about Bumblebee ID. And if you did want to get involved with bee walks, no matter where you are in the country, it's fascinating to know what bees are in your area. So if you were interested in getting and knowing a little bit more about identification, we do have resources in there, and we also do have our own book as well. But we'd love you to become members as well. It also helps fund all of our project work across the UK. We've got projects all dotted about, so you can find out all about those on our website as well. And lots of information about bees there, how to ID them, about their ecology. So yeah, do have a look on our website.
I've had a look at the website and there truly is some great resources out there, and especially the educational materials I think are perfect for those people struggling with homeschooling at the moment. You can really have some interactive learning and get out into the garden and use those resources as well. So guys, it's been absolutely amazing to hear about your work, and it's really fascinating to be able to talk about such successful conservation work in our own backyard as well. So thank you both so much for joining us, and I'm sure those at home will check out the website and follow you guys on social media to offer you some support. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.